I guess I want to start just by learning who Clint Collide is. Like, I know that you've been doing things on the internet for a lot longer, and you have like 20,000 subscribers on your YouTube page. Tell me where it all started. Like, what is your mission?
Oh. Clint Collide is not my real name. It's a pen
Oh,
name,
yes.
but I started using Clint. Found Clint whenever I was in a deep depression, and started. Friends of mine started challenging me to make art again. I was a graphic
Hmm.
designer for 20 plus years and do photography on the side. I've been collecting photography off and on since I was a kid. My dad was an
Okay.
amateur photographer, so I've always had an eye for it and a passion for it. And one of my friends in my depression was just like, "Hey, you should just start making montages and slideshows. You really like doing that." And I did a couple for YouTube. Well, he dared me to post a couple to YouTube, and I did. I did one that was male centric and one that was female centric. And the male centric popped off, and I was like, "Oh, there's an audience for this."
Men like
And
images.
well, men like images, but I don't know if it's just how the algorithm works, but I get very um I realized very quickly I could only focus on men for YouTube. And that was a little upsetting because I love the ladies too. You know, I'm gay, but
Yeah.
definitely you know, love my sapphic sisters. And but it's where the audience is, and
Yeah.
it is definitely where my eye goes immediately. So over the years I've just
Well, so
been
tell me how that works. Like, you do found images, you're doing photo research. Most of this
Mhm.
is in the public realm.
Yeah.
And then you're mapping it up. So tell me how much time it takes. And I've also noticed you're now using AI and animating some of these images, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm kind of playing with that idea. Some people really don't like the AI. It's interesting. Did you realize one of the images in Queer Lens at the Getty is actually AI?
Yes, I saw that.
Oh,
It,
you
which
did?
one was
Okay.
it?
I thought it was labeled as AI in the gallery. It's not in the book in the catalog.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I have to
Interesting.
go look this up. But I found an article where it talks about it. How does it work? So I've been collecting images off and on for at least a decade, digital, because one of the problems with the internet is we have lost media.
Yeah.
You have a platform like, when Twitter was potentially going out, I was on there 24 hours a day practically downloading images because
Hmm.
that's our history. We don't have a lot of as much written history as I would hope we'd have.
Right.
But there is a lot of, gay centric, homoerotic imagery that it's out there. It's just not saved well. Most of it's out of copyright or was never copywritten because it was illegal to copyright it. So, it's I just don't want that to be forgotten. So the process
Right.
for me is find the images, find the music, assemble a collage, montage, slideshow, whatever you want to call it. I'm not precious with my work. I
Hmm.
just I consider it after a few months of doing it on YouTube, I realized I was trying different styles and different edits, and I was trying to be a little flashy. And what I
Hmm.
learned really quickly was my audience is predominantly 65 and above, and they really did not like me changing the format. So I had to find a style that worked for the majority of the images, and it's easier on me because everyone's able to focus on the imagery.
Yeah.
Like you don't if you're watching my editing, you're not watching the right thing.
Well, I mean, we're both men of a certain age, so we remember when also you would go into a bookstore, a gay bookstore, and there would be the table full of sexy photo books. And I was
Mhm.
thinking about that because one of the first that I ever bought, and this is when I was a teenager, and I have it here. I actually got it through. There used to be a book club called Quality Paperback Books. I don't know if you remember
Oh
it in
yeah, I
the
remember
'90s.
that. Mhm.
And me, my little cheeky teenage self, somehow my mom didn't care what I was doing when it came to books because books were weird to her. So I bought this book,
I have that
Pioneering
book in
Male
my.
Nude.
I have that
Yeah.
book. Yeah,
And years ago, I got to actually interview David Lettick and talk to him about why he collected these and put them into books and things like that. So, I mean, tell me about that. Like, remember how that was so like exciting when you'd go into a bookstore and you'd look at all these sexy pictures in the bookstore?
I mean, even before that, I mean, we're probably both children of catalogs,
Yeah.
for the holidays, and I mean, I would get excited because some of the models were very pretty. The photography wasn't necessarily, the wardrobe
No,
wasn't, but
the J.C. Penney's and Sears catalog. Yes,
yes. I mean, occasionally I'd, get a fancier catalog. Oh, or International Mail, because when I was coming
I
out,
was waiting for
International
you to
Mail,
talk. I remember when
that
International Mail showed up in the mailbox by random. I don't know who sent it to us or why. It was first Fredericks of Hollywood and then International Mail, and that became my soft porn for years.
I am a man of a certain size, so those clothing do not fit me. But my best friend was very definitely into International Mail, and I made fun of him a lot because I'm like,
Well,
you
I
can
never had.
look, but why do
I
you
was
need
a
it?
teenager, so I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't ordering any of this stuff. I was just ogling the onion skin shorts and things like that, and also the funny poet shirts and pirate shirts and everything else that was in there. No,
All the
actually, when that went out of business, when I was at Out Magazine, I did a gallery of a lot of those images because, yeah, we need to remember that nostalgia as well. So, what do you think when we have all these images, but now we're getting very fancy, well curated art shows with
I
some of
love it.
the art images, but also some of the found images as well.
I
So
love
we
it.
we so we both went and saw Queer Lens before it closed.
Mhm.
What was your response?
I had seen about a quarter of the images, at least digitally, over the years, and I knew the work of probably about half of the art of the photographers. So it was both familiar. I think the thing I was shocked the most about the image of the two boys kissing in the photo booth. That's what they use for the ads. I don't think it's not the cover for the book, but it was in
No,
a lot of
not
the
the cover.
advertising. Yeah, and I have it digitally, so if we get to the images we like, I bookmarked a bunch. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's healthy. I mean, what Neil and Hugh are doing with the Loving books, and their. Do you have the second one already? Because I'm jealous
I
if
don't
you
have the
do.
second one yet. No, I only have the second one as a PDF.
I need to reach out to those guys. We're also all of us are from Texas, so I came out in the bar they met in, or in the
Oh
club they
wow,
met
that was
in.
like in
Yeah,
Dallas, right?
in Dallas. Yeah. So I was
I grew
like,
up
I
in
reached.
Wichita Falls.
I didn't know that. Okay, all of
Yeah.
us Texas boys. Coach uh, Ricky Vaughn is also a Texas boy. So there's a lot of Texans here on Substack,
Hmm.
and no, I think it's great. And for so long, those images were being thrown away by families
Right.
and destroyed. And these are our dirty little secrets. Well, they're not dirty little secrets. They're lovely little secrets. I have an ex partner who's an antiques dealer and does estate sales, and he's constantly trying to rescue those photos.
Yeah.
He works primarily here in LA, so he sees a lot of families like trying to hide away the little family secrets. I'm like, they're not family secrets; they're history.
Yeah.
I wish we had more written down about who the people are in the photos, but we don't.
Right. Yeah. No, there's definitely archives that have been lost over the years. I mean, the first time I was really aware of that, I was talking to Charles Leslie of the Leslie Lohman Gallery, and they were explaining how that uh, museum started, which was a lot of the collection was artists' work and other collected things that people were just trashing when people died of AIDS. And so they were recovering it from dumpsters and from people then donating because people just didn't want to deal with it. So we have a lot, but we've also lost a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know I've collected quite a bit over the years, and I weave them into some of my montages. Most of them are digitally found, but
yeah.
it's exciting to see institutions actually legitimize, our contributions and not put it alongside of. And I mean, some of these artists are major names. I didn't know for years that Allen Ginsberg was a fantastic photographer. His
Hmm.
entire life he was shooting. I
Yeah.
did a video. I did a video of his just for fun. Did a video tribute to him and all of the people because he was a connector of people. And
And he
his
actually did
estate.
write on a lot of his photos.
Mhm.
So we actually do have, yeah.
Yeah, and his estate reached out to me, and it was at first it was a little cease and desist, and then they're like, "No, I think we just want a credit." I'm like, "That's
Okay.
perfect." Like, I'm like, honestly, I didn't know how to credit them. So I'm like happy to do so. And, of course they're like, if you're making any money, please share it. I'm like, those are free videos. I don't monetize those.
Yeah.
Because I think queer history should be free and, as ad free as possible.
Yeah. That's nice though that you didn't get the cease and desist because there's definitely estates that are not that friendly.
Yeah, I could name a couple. And sadly, I respect copyright law. Obviously, we're all creators. Um, they they seem to think they have more rights than they do. It's sad.
Right.
And what they're ended up doing is they're erasing some of the people from history because people are afraid to say their name. I mean, I
Hmm.
had one estate, executor tell me basically get his name out of your mouth. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't own the copyrights to any of these, so you have no case.
Hmm.
You have trademark. Yes, you can use the name commercially, but is that really what your goal is for the estate? Like
Hmm.
I thought it was keeping the legacy and the art alive.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, so I think it's important to actually talk about the whole photography becoming collected and also when it started being considered art. And I learned a lot. I don't know, you read the Sam Wagstaff biography, this one?
I have not. I didn't know it
Oh,
existed.
oh yeah, you should totally read it. It's great.
Oh yeah, I'm
It's
fascinated.
before and after Mapplethorpe. It's by Philip Gefter, and it's really fascinating because most of us are familiar with Mapplethorpe and his name, but this really, Sam was his patron and
Yeah.
lover, but also it really gets into how Mapplethorpe, he wasn't into photography at the time when they met, and Mapplethorpe basically turned him on to photography, got him collecting. Then he amassed one of the largest private collections of photos, and then sold it and donated it to the Getty. Is why they have such an amazing collection. And when I talk to my students about that, because nowadays images are everywhere and photography, everybody's a photographer, and what does it even mean? And to think like 50, 60 years ago, people didn't really value photography in the same way. And you had to have people, as you just said, create a market for it, create a collection, reason to collect it. And so tell me about that when you were a kid. Like, what got you into photography?
Well, I mean, my earliest memories are of being with my dad on a Saturday afternoon, going from camera store to camera store. He was on a budget, but he was always looking for the next gadget,
Hmm.
and his collection was relatively small when he passed. So I'm like, huh, we spent a lot of time looking for just that lens or just
Hmm.
that whatever. And he did not
Was
take
he a
that many.
Pentax guy? Like, what was his main photo? What was his
He was
main
a
camera?
Minolta. He was a Minolta.
Okay.
So I've adapted one of his prime lenses to work on my Sony system, and it just takes beautiful. It's a 50-plus-year-old lens that takes images that are much better than the ones you can buy
Mhm.
now. They just has more character. Um, and I don't know if that's just me, waxing nostalgic or not, because sometimes, a boy can likes to remember. Um, the memories are pretty strong of like, we would go to photo shows and I'd look at, I was always drawn to the vintage photo aisle, which he humored me because he was into new photography.
Right.
And, he was always looking for an excuse. Can I photograph a naked woman? And my mom was absolutely not. But, so he loved her and he worked within her comfort level. And but he left behind a lot of. I actually prefer his amateur photography to his more pro am photos. They're more ethereal.
So did you have a dark room at your house?
No, he only he used the local lab and nothing very professional. We just didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
So he made what he could, and put that in me that when you get old enough and want to take your own photos, and he had no idea that digital was coming. I often imagine what it would be like now living around him. Like there would be 90,000 photos, a day.
Right.
If printing
Yeah.
had not been a problem.
Well, that's the other thing, though, is that we capture so many images, but we rarely print them. And I've tried to now and then remember that I can actually create a physical object and do something with that photo, because otherwise you have this huge archive, and what do you do with it? It's not like back. My mom would always have like this like cake tin or cookie tin, and it was full of all these photos that weren't in the photo album. So it was like you had the photo albums, but then you also would go and look through all of the like boxes and tins full of all the other photos, and that was always fun, and that still exists. Like I'm sure they have thousands of photos just sitting there in a shelf somewhere.
I have literally boxes and boxes and boxes of slides and prints that I've collected over the years, probably 10,000 physical images that I still have not gone through because they take so long. I've
Yeah.
finally gotten a process to scanning things that's a little more reasonable. But even then, you have to consider, what is the subject? Is this something, even interesting to me? I tend to scan everything and then figure it out later.
Right. Well, so I'm thinking about the reason why I wanted to talk to you about Queer Lens and why I'm interested in general at this moment is, we lived through the 90s, Jesse Helms railing against Mapplethorpe and all these other things.
Oh,
Sally Mann
so
was also
tedious.
part of that.
Sally
And
Mann's still part of it. Have you read about her
yeah,
recently? Yeah,
yeah.
sad.
And her photography is brilliant and beautiful, but also there are issues about it that still, make us all a little uncomfortable.
But that's what art does, and I think
Yeah,
people need to understand that art is supposed to not just be pretty.
right.
It can make you uncomfortable. The Queer Lens had several images that made me very uncomfortable, but I'm like, wow. But they stick in my mind.
Hmm. Do you remember which ones in particular?
There was one, the man was a quadriplegic, or he
Oh
he
yeah,
was amputated. Like, but what a beautiful face. I
yeah.
marked it earlier. It
I
was
just saw that
such a
one too. That was a very disturbing but beautiful photo.
I would like to, and um it's towards the end. Oh, here it is. I mean, this image is just stunning.
Hmm.
And it's by George Dureau, and it's the subject is BJ Robinson. Um, but yeah, like I'm like, why am I so taken with this image? And I kept coming back to it. And also so much in this, like so much of early queer history, queer photo, or even vintage photography is very, very white.
Hmm.
And I get a lot of comments on YouTube of people who want more representation, want more diversity. And I really struggle to do that. One
Yep.
omission in Queer Lens that I really wish they would have used is Lawn of New York. Lawn of New York, beefcake photographer. I think he called himself Artistic Physique Photos. I think
Hmm.
that was. I think he called himself Artistic Physique Photographer was his business card. Um, but he shot all races. actually shot all body types, preferably bodybuilders, because that's how he got into that world. And I know Matthew from Boy Culture
Hmm.
actually knew. I think he actually knew him. So it's nice that we still have people around who knew these icons to me.
Yeah,
And I wish he had been included in this show. I didn't see any of
yeah.
his photos.
It was interesting, for example, to see Man in a Polyester Suit, the Maplethorpe,
Mhm.
that of all of his, that's the one. Obviously, they must own it. Right? That's a photo that is also very controversial for many reasons. But it was, I'd seen those in other contexts, but seeing it in this context, it was a little like, whoa. Um, and and there is something about the photos that also are fetishistic sometimes, and the choice of what one is capturing, how they're capturing it, um, and why they're capturing it, right? Like as you said, like sometimes it is an erotic gaze, sometimes it is documentation, sometimes it is to be provocative. And so some of those photos that you expected were there, but
Mhm.
then there
And
were
I
so
mean,
many that I'd never seen.
what was something you hadn't seen before? I'm just curious.
Um, I think some of the female images, especially because
Mhm.
I feel like so often it's the male gaze that we get, and so the ones that focus on female bodies or female identified bodies and trans bodies, those were new to me because we don't
Mhm.
see those as often. Um, and then some of the choices in the Friends of Dorothy portrait gallery, I was like,
Oh,
oh
those
wow,
were
like I
wonderful.
yeah. And also the way it was assembled, I loved, and you really had to spend time with it, and it did feel like you were in some sort of, uh, uh, I don't know, a throwback type of space, right? Where you had hundreds of images with no captions, and so you had to really spend time with them. But even like seeing the Anderson Cooper as a baby from,
Oh, yeah.
what's her name? I was like, oh, I'm suddenly
Who
blanking.
was it? Was it Diane
It's
Arbus?
yeah, it's Arbus, yeah. And I was like, "Oh, wow, funny that's the photo we have."
I mean, it's like, can you imagine your mom calling up, Ms. Arbus going, "Hey, can you come take a picture of my kid?" Because that's probably what Gloria Vanderbilt did.
Yeah, I think Gloria Vanderbilt was hanging out with enough of the downtown
Uh-huh.
set that it makes sense.
It makes total sense, but it's also like, wow. And then whenever I didn't realize it was him until I read the card, and I'm like, "Oh my god," then you can't not see it. For those that are tuning in, the Friends of Dorothy room was a little side room where they had a collage of, I don't know, probably 50 portraits.
Oh. Oh, I think it was even more.
It was a
Yeah,
lot of portraits.
yeah,
And so each wall was sort of it was truly a gallery wall. They weren't separated. They everybody was a friend. There didn't seem to be any historical context for anything. It's like, someone like Langford Hughes or did I get the name right? Was next to George
Langston Hughes.
Michael.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And they
I,
had some interesting choices like having Leonard Bernstein and David Bowie, so, you had bisexual or queer adjacent or,
mhm.
questionable, you know?
Well, and I think they did a good job of featuring images by allies or
Yeah,
people who never came out. We have
yeah,
we have people that we still question, and it's an endless debate on YouTube. They weren't gay, and I'm like, I never said they were.
right. Well, that's something that yeah, that's something Hugh and Neil have actually had to talk about with their book, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like their decision to say that this is same-sex love, and of course we have no idea if these men identified
Mhm.
as anything. We don't know.
We don't know, and yeah, there are we've changed a lot in how men are interact with each other. Have a theory that everything changed when the first Kinsey report came out.
Right.
Everyone, like, I'm not gay, but before that, especially in war, they're buddy buddy. and it's very physical. And if you're on a ship or you're just away from home, yeah, physical connection, we're made for that. We're human
Well,
beings.
if you read some of the like gay New York history, you learn actually that there was a lot more fluidity and a lot more openness before the war,
Mhm.
and it was actually after the war that things kind of went backwards, and and then of course everyone thought, oh, 1968 Stonewall, everything changed, but in fact there was a
Ooh.
lot of stuff happening way before that, um, and then we went to this like sort of repression. But that's actually why I think it's so powerful to have something like this, and that they're using the boys kissing in the promo, and that those are everywhere, all over LA and all over
Mhm.
everywhere. And I learned this, so I worked at Out Magazine from 2011 to the end of 2015, and every chance I got to have a photo of same sex kissing, I would try to use it.
Mhm.
And the reason why is it still freaks people out. It they don't know how to deal with it. They can handle 2 women a little bit better than 2 men. But it was fascinating to me that that was still a political act to just show 2 men kissing. And
Mhm.
and I told this story before. So in 2012, we put Neil Patrick Harris and David Burtka on the cover of Out, and they were nuzzling like this.
Mhm.
And actually, I will say this is the issue that has inspired Queer Love Project. Like, I started working on this issue, and I loved interviewing all the people about their relationships and having them tell their stories. This cover, though, got us into controversy because
Why?
even in New York, at one of the, I'm sure this happened to more than one, but I know for certain the magazine spot in Penn Station put it in the pornography section because you had these 2 men not even kissing, but nuzzling, and that made it pornography. And, this question always of what is allowed and what is too much or whatever is a fascinating one because, I mean, this is a very tame picture, right? Like, just they're in suits, they are
I mean, the
touching.
most erotic thing is they're shaped like a heart if you look at their silhouette.
Right, right.
Like, that's the most erotic
And
thing.
And the fact that it got placed in the pornography section was like, wow, this is in 2012 in New York City? Like, what the hell? And so I always default to wanting to show more same-sex desire, more same-sex intimacy, because one, you have to normalize it so that people do, realize like, oh, this is okay. But also because it's still a political act, even in 2025, as we know.
It's very much a political act. I got in trouble several times on YouTube for breaking community standards. And what their community standards, I don't know if you've ever read them, but anything that's sexually gratifying. And I'm like, what does that even mean, though? You have entire channels that are ASMR, and I know a lot of people that get off on
Exactly.
that. I'm like,
Or
it's an
you could just be
entire
showing feet.
genre. Yeah, like people get off on all kinds of things. So sexually gratifying is whatever corporate, that's just corporate
Yeah.
speak. And, I've worked for enough big corporations to know how these rules work. And I really resented it because I was doing this as, for me, it was therapy at the time. And I'm like, how dare you get in the way of what I'm trying to do? And, I don't take well to anyone telling me what to do. So I went to war
Were
with, it was a very Don Quixote war.
were you shadow banned like people do that happens on Instagram and things like that?
No, I actually got like a week suspension here. It ultimately about a full month over the course of 3 months. And I was on the verge of getting my channel demonetized and removed. And I'm like, but I've worked so hard, and they would, it'd be like an inch of a butt crack. I'm like, sorry, that's not. I mean, Instagram has way worse. And also, have you seen what you feature? How you feature women? They're
Exactly.
okay. They're okay with the male gaze as long as it's the straight male gaze. They're not okay with the gay male gaze.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
So how did you thread that needle? How did you get through that?
I've had to be a lot more PG on YouTube. That's one of the reasons during that month, that off and on month, I begged my followers to follow me over to Substack, and I was publishing some pretty not safe for work stuff. I've pulled back a little bit. I don't like to do full Monty. It causes problems with the credit card processor. They're very prudish. I don't want to risk. This is my livelihood. I've gone from being a dependent corporate graphic designer to being an independent
Right.
contractor and doing my thing. And it nourishes me because this is a great excuse for me to learn gay history, which I didn't know. I
Hmm.
learn something new every day. Some of it I don't want to know. Like, oh, he was gay too. Ooh.
You got to learn all of it, even the bad stuff.
Even the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um,
Well, then tell me about the Clint Collide Substack and how that then has evolved and what you do there, because you put something out every day.
I put out a daily newsletter, and it's usually whatever is going on in my life, or things that I'm thinking about. Occasionally, I'll spotlight a queer pioneer, but then it's a full list of this is my daily ritual of just how I wake up is looking at what happened on this day.
Yeah.
And then I try to spotlight, however many, I call it born this way on this day. Those are the people that I'd like to, I know it's LGBTQ history month right now.
Yeah.
But I wish it were, I look at it like every day is a history month. Let's go look at it. And I'm always impressed whenever I get, private messages and comments, public comments that are, I never knew about this person. I'm like, me neither. or they're my favorite people in the world. One of my dear subscribers reached out to me and said, your writing reminds me of one of my favorite writers. And I'm like, how did he know that they're one of my favorite writers? And it turns out he was very dear friends with him. I don't know
Oh,
if you're familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Monette.
yeah.
Um,
I wasn't
so
friends with
so
him,
he's
but I'm familiar with the
well,
writing.
yeah. I mean, I think both of us are a little young for when he passed. Um, but it's been lovely having conversations with him about what his life was like, what he was
Yeah.
like as a person. And I'm like, okay, I like that continuity, and I don't know how he picked it out of thin air that this is, one of my earliest gay writers. And I
I
think going to see the whoa.
What's that?
Oh, my headphones just spaced out for a second.
Oh, I I like what you're saying as well. I was a Substack skeptic until pretty recently, and I'm so glad that I had got on it last year and have been doing this because I was also in like a low level depression and was missing community and reaching out to people. And I've met so many friends and new people that I wouldn't have. I've learned so much while being on Substack. And I know there must be a toxic side that I'm not tuned into, but so far it's been really like a comfort and really, really positive.
I think it's like 10% that I've noticed that's a little toxic, 90% really good. And I feel like most of us are building each other up and like, hey, have you noticed this of this person? Like just I don't know. I feel more adventurous on Substack than I have on other platforms.
Yeah.
I
Some people
sample a
have
lot
kind of
more.
described it as like the when Tumblr was going strong and you could, just meet people and create a community, but I never really did Tumblr.
I like Tumblr and I still use it occasionally, but I do find, and I was never part of it when it was at its height, but I think Substack has more meat on the bones. Like you can read a short note and see, oh, I like the vibe of this, but then I can dig deeper and find out, what are you really writing about? And
Yeah.
you have such a long history of writing. It'd be interesting for you to talk about even your experiences with all of these platforms. as
Yeah.
a freelance writer and, staff writer.
Well, and it's been interesting. So the first time I went to the One Archive, which is also in LA, it was
Mhm.
fascinating to go back behind the scenes and go through the archive because all these publications that I've written for that no longer exist, I also could they have them. So like
Oh,
the first gay publication I ever wrote for was Southern Voice in Atlanta. And it doesn't really exist in the same format. I don't think it exists at all anymore. But that ephemera, because we didn't really have the internet then. I mean, we did, but it was not the same.
yeah.
So to be able to like go see these newspapers that I wrote for and be like, oh, look, this exists. But they also had all the Damrons. They had all like they have so much print media. If you have you been to
Mhm.
the One Archive?
I love it.
It Oh
I
my God,
I
I totally
actually
got
I
archive
actually
fever.
I need to go in as a researcher and actually go
Yeah.
through, like, I've been on the tour, but I've not been admitted, or I haven't applied, I'll be honest.
Well, you should also, yeah, you should engage with them because perhaps with your collection of photos, you could even propose an exhibit or something.
I'd like to
Um,
actually start donating some things to them because I think their collection is wonderful and probably the safest locally that we have. I mean,
mhm.
the Getty's great, and I'm glad that they did this queer image series. Um, I just so many of their photos never see the light of day
Yeah,
because
of course.
they're always in cold storage. And I guess that's true of most. I think that's why I'm excited that, Hugh and Neil did where did they do wasn't it Austria that they had
Yeah.
the museum show?
It was in Europe. I don't know if it was in Austria or Switzerland, but they are working on another museum show, and so that's exciting. Because yeah, I mean, all the photos are in the books, but I realized like, oh, I do think there's something special about seeing the physical object.
Well, when
Um,
I realized that the shot for the boys kissing, it's literally like an inch and a half by an inch and a half. And that image is ingrained in my head and is one of the images that got me excited about, doing this. It clicked
right.
at some point. Oh, here are all these interests that you like. Let's do it.
Well, so not that I'm trying to get you some competition, but if people who are listening want to try to start collecting vintage photography or they want to, do something, what do you
Do
recommend that people do?
go to your thrift stores. Go to your antique markets. The antique stores are amazing. If you have local estate sales, go check them out. Get to be friends with the estate liquidators. And sometimes, if they know you're buying specific things or interested in certain things, and also a lot of the estate liquidators are gay, so they will be helpful.
I was going to
Uh,
say
so they will definitely help. They want to
they're
find good
sympathetic to the
homes.
cause.
Yeah, they definitely are, and most of them are their storage containers are overflowing, so they usually can't take on many more collections. But
Hmm.
ask your friends and family. I have one of my childhood friends' wives. She had three uncles who all lived together. Bachelor uncles. We don't know, but she had literally a box of photos left over when she cleaned out their estates. And she's like, we as the family went through them and we don't know who any of these people are. And so like they were just going to dump the photos. I'm like, please don't dump photography. Please don't. You
So it's
can
just a
always
bunch of
find.
guys hanging out and photos.
No, the photos are interesting because they're typical family photos, but then sometimes you get, you know, I'll give an example. My father was in the Air Force, and
Mine too.
every year he would like come back and want to do a slideshow for me of his time in mostly Thailand. And there are a bunch of photos in that series, and I have them that I'm like, that's an interesting way of shooting that guy. And so after his passing, I went to my aunt, his sister, and I was like, do you suspect that dad might have had, maybe a same sex relationship? And she definitely said no. And then
Mhm.
she's like, "Okay, well, if I tell you the truth, you can never tell your mom." And I'm like, "Of course, that would not be fun for her." So, like, so I've never told this story while she was, alive, so she's no longer with us. And, you know, there's just a way you look at someone that you love. And we don't know his name. We don't know like how close or how long they were together, but they had an encounter or two, and he told her about it when he came back from the Air Force because he loved to horrify her.
So you have this photo?
I do. I probably will never share it publicly, but yes.
But why not write that story for me? I'd love for you to write that story. That's an interesting queer love story about learning
I
about your
don't know that
dad.
I'm Yeah. It might happen eventually. I think I'm not quite ready to go there yet.
I understand. Just consider it. It's a really
Yeah.
good prompt.
Yeah, I mean, and his photos were nothing special. It was just a certain way you look at someone you care about differently, even through a lens.
See,
And
that's
I
your
think
opening
that's what
line.
I think that's what Hugh and Neil respond to so well.
Yeah,
I'm honored to know them even a little bit through, DMs and such. They're
they're
they're so
sweet.
cute. They go on my YouTube channel and watch some of the videos, and of course, I didn't know some of the images were for them because I hadn't seen their book until last year. A
Oh,
friend
okay.
finally a friend finally, like, gifted it to me because I wasn't that aware, but I had seen the images all over Tumblr.
Yeah,
And they were never credited, so I had no idea, and they very kindly aren't asking me to remove anything because, they don't own a copyright technically for
yeah,
most of these things, but they do own their collection's copyright.
right.
So, but they kindly mark which they timestamp the images that are from their collection, which is such a great education for me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I see so many images, I'm like, "I don't know who that is anymore."
I was curious about that because I noticed some of their images in your montages, and I was like, "Oh, I wondered." And now it's good to know that you have been discovering the provenance of some of
No,
those.
yeah, I discover a lot of the provenance later. YouTube's image search has gotten better recently, but not great. Because there for a while, I was trying to research every image before I did it. Most of my montages have close to 100 images.
Mhm.
So that takes a little bit of time. And I try to do my due diligence, but I don't always.
So I'm gonna write a post after we're done talking, and so I'm curious, will you send me, like, your top 5 or top 10 images from the Queer Lens exhibit that you loved, and we can include
Hmm.
those?
Yeah, sure.
And then, everyone obviously, if they're not aware of Clint Collide on YouTube, they should also discover that.
Come on
You have
over. We're
20,000 over
fun.
20,000 subscribers, that's a lot.
On YouTube, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I think I'm just under 20,000. We're about to roll over. Or did I already roll
Oh,
over?
I think I checked it today and it said 20,000, but
Oh, that's great. Cool. Yay! That was my milestone.
yeah, I thought so. Um, and anything else? I mean, we have like 50 people here who, if anybody here has any questions for either me or Clint, you can do that. Or is there anything else you want people to be aware of when they're looking at queer photography?
Share it. I mean, like, I think it's part of our history, and so much of our history has gone missing. If you can, I have a couple of people who've reached out to me recently saying they'd like to donate some photos to me. That's awesome. I'm honored. Um, but that's not necessary,
Yeah.
like, luckily with these platforms, even if you're not don't have a newsletter on Substack, you can post it on your notes. Those are things that charm me, I know, there's an artist, I don't know if you're familiar with Anthony Hurd, but he doesn't have
Okay.
Anthony's artwork is beautiful, and he doesn't use Substack. He just uses notes on Substack to share his work, and then shoots people back to his website, which is also beautiful. And I've bought several prints from him, which I still need to hang eventually. If you get it, share it. I think the representation matters. The reminders that we've always been here. That's gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, queer, whatever your label. Um, and try to remember the humanity of it.
Yeah. So you're becoming a sort of archivist.
Yeah, unexpected archivist. I didn't know that's what was happening, but yeah, it seems that way. And I'm becoming the
Apparently, like the Gen Z kids are really and millennials are really into like that's a huge thing in graduate school. People are learning to be archivists, but I think people can be you can learn on your own. You don't even have to go to college for it.
I don't think you need to. I think what's interesting for me is I don't think I really appreciated that we had lost a generation and a half of gay men. And the audience that I found on YouTube is predominantly 65 and above. And the stories that they email me and DM me just blow my mind, And I'm like, so talk to your gay elders, y'all. If you're not a gay elder, you will be soon. You'll want to be talked to too. Um, Everybody has a story.
I yeah, I one of the things that I said to uh Hugh and Neil in our podcast episode about the Loving books is that in a way they feel like a family photo album of relatives that we don't know who they are. And that's partly because, yes, we have our biological families and we have our chosen families, but we also have this queer family that goes back generations and has been either, as you said, forgotten or, uh, not given any prominence of place in history. And there's something really moving, and I think that's why people have, especially to this book, why they have such a visceral reaction to these photos because you're
Oh,
like, oh, this could be my grandparents or my uncle or whatever, but they're not any of those things. We
I've
somehow feel related to them.
I've taken their cover image and put it through AI a few times. Oh,
I know it's
oh,
so cute. I've seen that one.
oh, oh. Um, I need to publish maybe all of them and send them to those guys because they're just. I'm like, how does this humanize them even more? I mean, the image
I
is
don't know
so
if they would include
beautiful.
it in the exhibit, but that would
Oh
be an
no, no,
amazing
no!
thing to have in the exhibit.
It could
I
be,
think it
yeah. I
would.
mean, because I think what a lot of people have trouble with is that they don't respond as well to static images anymore. I sit there and gaze at them. That's why, my videos have slight zoom ins just to keep the people that are bored with static imagery like engaged. Um, but I consider it slow TV for gay men. you know, it's like I put it on in the background just to relax.
Well, and I guess you could put it on your TV if you wanted it in the background.
Mhm.
It's like a good wallpaper.
Yeah, I definitely use it as wallpaper. And I think I'm going to get back to doing live replays of old ones because then I have, a 6 or 7 hour stream. And I've done
Oh
that
wow.
and people really enjoy them. And,
Hmm.
I don't get a ton of traffic on my site, on my channel, but like even having, 20, 30 people show up and write me questions that I check in on, throughout the day. It's just fascinating.
What kind of questions do you get?
Where did the images come from? How can I scan my own collection? I get a lot of those things. I try to, see what their technical abilities are and advise them accordingly. You can do it on your phone if you need to.
Yeah.
There are apps,
Yeah.
PhotoScan by Google is one of the most amazing little apps. If you feel like spending money, or PhotoMine, I think it's called, is quite good.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's there's a lot of tech out there that's free and you can do a lot with it.
Yeah. But, you know, a lot of people don't have either the time or the technical ability. So I'm like, I'm debating going into that business a little bit. You know,
Mm,
is there an interest in scanning services? I know a lot of people don't want to send them out to people they don't know. And I mean, they don't know me. I'm an internet person. But um, you know, so many of the photos that we have that have survived were developed at home. They were developed by
yeah,
the photographers. And, you know, you'll notice that the laws were changing in the 70s as the instant film revolution was taking over. I think there's some interesting ways that technology has enabled us to stand out. I mean, digital allows for OnlyFans, for instance.
right.
But if we had had to have things developed, I don't know that OnlyFans would exist.
Well, and that's also when Polaroid came around and the revolution that caused. So you could do things, but you then do need to scan those because they don't last forever.
They don't last
Uh,
forever. I mean, no photos, no prints last forever.
yeah,
And that's why, you know, I went into, did you happen to go into the $3 bill exhibition?
I don't think I did. No.
So it was across the campus. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't love just ephemera without a lot of context. And the paper was so fragile on so many of these things, it was practically in the dark. So I'm like, I can't see it.
I
I don't know
thought
what I'm
about
looking.
going over there, but I didn't. So what was in it?
I was a lot of ephemera, dating back to 1800s. So, you know, it was like catalogs for some art exhibits. You know, I think there was a Wilhelm von Gloden catalog, if memory
Hmm.
serves, and it went all the way up to the 80s with a lot of the AIDS activism. You know, there was quite a collection of Ronnie killed, you know, the ACT UP posters that were like
Yeah.
Ronnie killed us, basically.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't my favorite exhibit. I spent a lot more time. I actually went back to the Queer Lens and took
Yeah.
another round. I was also fascinated by the variety of people and watching straight men observe.
That was interesting. I definitely saw the tourist who did not know what they were getting into come through.
I was impressed that on the whole they were mostly respectful, even
So
if I don't.
this is what I think is important. I mean, that even if it's not something that you are, uh, gonna, it's gonna maybe trigger you in ways that you're unsure of. That's the reason why you should go to an exhibit, even if you're not the target audience. And I'm working on a piece right now. As I mentioned to you, I yesterday went and saw the play Prince Faggot for the second time, and it's fascinating. It's selling out. It's mainly a gay audience in the theater, but at the same time, I'm like, the fact that this is existing, like, if we're in our Weimar era Germany time of the United States, like, at least we have this kind of stuff happening, and it has some very explicit sex scenes and kink scenes in the play, but that's actually not the reason why I love it. But I just love that it exists, and that I love that sometimes a straight man or woman is going to go in there and have their mind blown and be
Yeah,
like, that's fine. I mean, I've been indoctrinated with enough straight imagery over my life that I think it's fine to get the other stuff.
I have a dear cousin who is married to a wonderful, wonderful man. And I don't know if you remember the documentary Tarnation,
Mhm.
probably late aughts, I think.
Yeah,
And he was worried about seeing it because of all the man kissing. And I'm like, I've watched you guys make out for years and it's not, I've survived. And so the next time I flew in to see the family, I put a kiss on him. I'm like let's just get this out of the way. And my cousin, she just shaking her head. She's like, I knew you were going to do it. I'm like, he made such a big deal about man kissing. Let's just get him over the hump. I'm like, you're
exactly.
Italian, dude. You guys kiss. Come on. And
You
he admitted
gotta.
finally.
It's like a vaccine. You have to inoculate him so he doesn't have bad reactions to the man kissing.
He still speaks to me, so I think we're okay.
Yeah. Well, Clint, this has been really a pleasure, and I want us to have more conversations. And I think this was perfect because, you mentioned that you had seen the exhibit. I had just seen the exhibit. I'm glad that we got to see it, now talk about it. And, people who missed it, the book is out there, as you said.
The
It's a
book,
very
and
heavy book.
I have a I need to read some of the essays, Catherine
Yeah, no, I'm
Opie
really
is
excited that Catherine Opie has that piece at the back.
yeah,
I need to read it as well. Her
but
work
I was
always, it's amazing.
well, and she's still teaching as far as I know at UCLA,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I've always wanted to go take a class with her, and I'm like,
Do
I don't
it.
know if I can. I'm a little nervous. She's a little nerve-wracking for me. I hold her work in high esteem, and also don't always enjoy it. You
Yeah.
know, oh, that's confrontational. Yay! And I'm not as confrontational except in writing.
We all have our mediums.
We do, we do. I'll
Um,
send you some
yeah,
images.
send me some images, and thank you everyone who joined us. This has been really fun, and uh, more queer love in photography.
Great. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.